The backyard erupted in applause before Gerald Stone could even set down his drink. Monica stood beside Victor, Gerald's closest friend since college, holding an ultrasound photo above her shoulder like a trophy. "Pregnant," she announced. Gerald's sister clapped. Monica's parents cheered. Someone near the grill shouted congratulations. Then Monica turned directly toward her husband. Just not with Gerald. The celebration died instantly. Gerald remained beside the patio table while dozens of relatives stared at him, waiting for the Humie. Victor stepped closer to Monica and wrapped an arm around her waist. "I've been with your wife for a year, Gerald," he said, laughing. "You never noticed." A few people looked away, others didn't. They simply watched. Victor raised his glass higher, enjoying the silence. "And maybe that's not the only thing you missed." Gerald's eyes narrowed slightly. Victor nodded toward Gerald's adult daughter. "You spent your whole life raising her. Maybe you weren't raising your own child either." A gasp moved through the backyard. "Victor?" someone whispered. Monica didn't stop him. She actually smiled. Gerald had spent 33 years married to her. He had worked as a history teacher, saved Carefurion was now standing, and trusted the woman best. Now Monica appeared determined to turn that trust into entertainment. "Well," she asked, "aren't you going to say anything?" Gerald slowly placed his untouched drink on the table. That tiny movement changed Monica's expression. She had expected shouting, maybe tears, maybe Gerald demanding explanations while Victor laughed at him. Instead, Gerald simply looked at both of them. A cousin whispered, "He's in shock." Gerald heard it. He said nothing, because for months he had quietly collected things Monica believed he had never noticed. Missing money, strange hotel charges, late-night excuses that didn't match, medical bills Monica had hidden, documents connected to Victor, even the strange paperwork surrounding property Gerald thought was protected. Monica mistook his silence for defeat. "You should have listened when I told you our marriage needed to change," she said. Gerald almost smiled. Months earlier, Monica had called it an open marriage. Now everyone could see what she had really meant. What none of them knew was that Gerald had already followed the trail much further than Monica Imagi at the end of the street. A police cruiser slowly turned toward the house. Nobody at the barbecue noticed. Gerald did. And as the cruiser approached, only one question remained. Why was the man being publicly destroyed the calmest person in the yard? Gerald arrived home from the barbecue planning weeks before anyone else did. He walked into his workshop, closed the door, and placed a thick folder on the workbench. Inside were neatly organized bank statements, printed emails, photographs, property records, medical investigator. He had never imagined his retirement would begin this way. Months earlier, Monica had sat across from him at the kitchen table with an unexpected proposal. "I think we should open our marriage," she had said matter-of-factly. Gerald stared at her. "After 33 years, you've become comfortable, Gerald. I don't want to spend the rest of my life feeling trapped." "I made vows to you," he replied quietly. "I'm not interested in dating other people," Monica shrugged. "Then don't." At the time, Gerald believed the conversation had ended. It hadn't. Within weeks, Monica began disappearing for entire evenings. She called them girls' nights, yoga retreats, charity meetings, and weekend wellness trips. Each explanation sounded reasonable until Gerald noticed the same pattern repeating. Money disappeared from their joint account. Victor suddenly seemed to know Monica's schedule better than Gerald did. Then one afternoon, Monica accidentally forwarded a hotel reservation confirmation to Gerald. Instead, the reservation listed 2 guests. One name had been removed. That single mistake convinced Gerald to stop guessing. Rather than confront Monica with accusations he couldn't prove, he quietly hired an attorney, and a lengthy investigation uncovered far more than infidelity. Joint savings had been quietly redirected. Property paperwork had been altered without his knowledge. There were repeated visits to the same medical clinic, each carefully concealed from household record. When Gerald asked his attorney whether he should expose everything immediately, the answer surprised. "Not yet," the attorney said. Someone willing to deceive this much usually becomes overconfident. Days later, Monica announced she wanted to host a large family barbecue. "Got life-changing news," she told everyone with unusual excitement. Gerald accepted the invitation without hesitation. As he parked outside the house that afternoon, his phone vibrated. It was a message from his attorney. The final laboratory report had arrived. Gerald looked at the screen for several seconds before locking his phone. Then he whispered to himself, "So, Now I know everything. Victor tapped his glass with a fork until every conversation stopped. I think we deserve another toast, he announced with a grin. A few nervous laughs spread through the backyard. Monica slipped her hand into Victor's, making no effort to hide their relationship anymore. We're done pretending, she said proudly. Life's too short to stay in unhappy marriages. She looked directly at Gerald. You were emotionally absent for years. I finally chose happiness. Several relatives nodded, believing her version of the story. Victor wasn't finished. You know what's funny? He said, pointing toward the house. Gerald paid for this place, half the bills. A couple of guests laughed awkwardly. Gerald's brother frowned but remained silent. Victor raised his glass again. Here's to honesty. Gerald calmly stepped forward. Before anyone leaves, he said evenly, I'd appreciate it if everyone stayed exactly where they are. His voice wasn't angry, it was controlled. That unexpected calm caused the laughter to fade. From a leather portfolio beside his chair, Gerald removed several sealed envelopes. He walked to Monica's parents first. Think you should read this. Then he handed another envelope to Victor's wife. This one is for you. Finally, he approached his daughter. I wish you never had to see any of this, but you deserve facts instead of rumors. Each envelope contained different documents, bank transfers, property records, legal notices. Copies of appointments, no explanations, only evidence. Victor's wife opened hers immediately. The color drained from her face. She looked from the paperwork to Victor, then back again. Is this? Monica hurried toward her. Read that. Gerald gently stepped between them. No. The first time all afternoon, Monica looked uncertain. She reached for Gerald's portfolio. What have you done? Before Gerald answered, 2 marked police vehicles rolled slowly into the driveway, every head turned. The backyard fell completely silent. The officers stepped out and walked directly toward the gathering. They didn't even glance at Gerald. One officer addressed the crowd. Which of you are Monica Stone and Victor Lawson? Victor forced a smile. Is there some kind of mistake? The officer's expression never changed. We need both of you to remain exactly where you are. Cheerful atmosphere vanished in an instant. Victor lowered his glass. Monica forced a nervous laugh. There has to be some misunderstanding, she said. We're just having a family barbecue. Officers didn't argue. Instead, one of them asked both Monica and Victor for identification while another quietly walked. Todd arrived carrying a slim black briefcase. Whispers spread through the guests. What is this about? Did someone call the police? I thought this was about the affair. Gerald remained exactly where he was. His daughter looked at him, confused. Dad, did you know this was coming? He met her eyes. I knew today would end differently than your mother expected. Victor's wife was still staring at the papers Gerald had handed her. Her hands trembled as she turned another page. This can't be right. Victor took a step toward her. Don't believe whatever Gerald gave you. She looked up with tears in her eyes. These are bank records. Victor froze. They show money disappearing from our investment account. Another page revealed transfers into accounts connected to expenses that supported the affair, hotel payments, luxury purchases, apartment rent. Each transaction told the same story. Across the yard, Monica's parents opened their own envelope. Inside were copies of financial documents showing Monica had secretly attempted to move marital assets. Her father slowly removed his glasses. Monica. She immediately shook her head. It's not what it looks like. Gerald said nothing. His silence forced the documents to speak for themselves. Then his daughter opened the envelope addressed to her. She expected answers. Instead, she found copies of legal filings requesting a court-authorized DNA determination. After Monchi looked up at her mother. You knew about this? Monica couldn't answer. The officer standing nearby received a folder from Gerald's attorney and reviewed several pages before he then addressed Monica directly. Stone, part of our investigation concerns medical documentation. Monica's face lost all color. The officer continued carefully. Records indicate you received repeated medical advice regarding an infectious condition and need to ask you several questions regarding what the backyard became perfectly still. Victor slowly looked at Monica. What is he talking about? She avoided his eyes. For the first time all afternoon, Victor wasn't laughing. He looked genuinely frightened. Relatives who had applauded the pregnancy announcement quietly stepped away from both Monica and Vic's yard. Gerald watched without celebrating. He had waited months for facts to replace manipulation. His attorney walked beside him and placed the final laboratory report on the patio table. He opened the folder, looked around the silent gathering, and spoke calmly. I believe everyone here deserves to hear the complete truth. Gerald's attorney laid the final report on the patio table and waited until every conversation had S for months. He began. Mr. Stone chose not to respond emotionally. He chose to respond with evidence no one interrupted. The attorney opened the first folder. When Gerald noticed unusual financial activity, he retained legal counsel and hired a licensed in covered something much larger. He summarized the findings one by one: secret bank transfers from joint marital accounts, money used to finance Monica and Victor's relationship, attempts to move marital assets before divorce proceedings began, documents containing false financial disclosures. Every record had been independently verified. Monica shook her head. He's twisting everything. Attorney calmly slid certified copies across the table. These came directly from the financial institutions. Her protest died immediately. He opened a second folder. Regarding the paternity claim, everyone looked toward Gerald's daughter. Monica had publicly suggested Gerald had spent decades raising someone else's child because she believed instead. Gerald had quietly followed the legal process months earlier. Rather than accusing Monica in public, he had petitioned the court for the appropriate testing, and the attorney explained that Gerald had refused to weaponize uncertainty. He wanted facts before making any accusation. Gerald's daughter walked over to him. With tears in her eyes, she took his hand. "You still protected me." Gerald nodded. "You were never responsible for choices made by adults." She embraced him while the backyard remained silent. Then the attorney addressed the final issue. He looked toward the investigating officers before speaking. Medical records recovered during this investigation show repeated documented instructions requimate partners. Those records, together with witness Victor's face drained of color, he slowly turned toward Monica. "You told me you were healthy." Monica opened her mouth, but no words came out. Victor's wife quietly folded the divorce papers her attorney had prepared weeks earlier. She placed them on the patio table. "I'm finished." She walked away without looking back. Monica's parents approached Gerald. Her father lowered his head. "I'm sorry." "So am I," Gerald replied. "I wanted a family. I never wanted this." Around the yard, relatives who had laughed only an hour earlier stood in embarrassed silence. Several apologized. Others simply left, unable to face Gerald after watching his public humiliation, and then discovering the officers informed Monica that the investigation would continue through the legal process and authority collected. They also advised Victor that neither of them argued anymore. The confidence that had filled the barbecue was gone. Over the following months, Gerald finalized the divorce through the courts. The assets he had spent a lifetime building were protected under the documented financial evidence. Monica lost her claim to property she had attempted to conceal. Victor's marriage ended, and several long-time business relationships dissolved after the truth became Gerald retired from teaching with the respect of his colleagues intact. Instead of dwelling on betrayal, he renovated the workshop where the investigation had first begun. His daughter visited often. Their relationship grew stronger because it was built on honesty instead of manipulation. One afternoon, while they shared coffee on the back porch, she smiled. "You know what I admire most?" Gerald looked at her. "You never let their cruelty turn you into someone cruel." He smiled for the first time in a long while. "I couldn't control what they chose to do." He looked across the quiet yard that no longer echoed with lies. "But I could choose how I answered." That barbecue was supposed to become the day Gerald Stone lost everything instead. It became the day the truth took everything his betrayers thought they had won.